Welcome to the Fortress World. You've only stepped through one door. The Whisper Chronicles is one collection of stories inside a much larger world. A world where whispers become adventures, kingdoms are built on truth, and every journey ultimately points to the king. Some stories are epic, some are quiet, some are written for children, others for dreamers. All of them are written with one purpose: to help you encounter Jesus through unforgettable stories. So journey through the Fortress World. We've got the Whisper Chronicles. We've got the Royal Identity series. Those are stories for daughters of the King learning who they always were meant to be. We've got Voices from the Fortress, epic Christian fantasy of battles, brave hearts, and eternal truth. We've got Prepare Like the Bride. It's a devotional series with mini stories to go along with some songs. And then we've got Victorious, Beloved Daughter of the King novel coming soon. It's a hope-filled fiction for women discovering their true identity and walking in victory. I am Nicole Charles. I'm a storyteller, but I believe that God gave us an imagination, and it's one of the greatest gifts alive. I love building worlds that awaken wonder, writing characters who wrestle with real questions, and creating stories that leave readers thinking about Jesus long after they've turned the last page. So whether you're reading a Whisper Chronicle, you're following Crystal through the Voices from the Fortress, you're discovering identity with the Royal Identity series, or you're diving into one of my devotionals, welcome. I am so glad you're here. So walk beside me for the new Chronicles. Share a story with another traveler who needs a whisper of hope today. Visit any of the Fortress World, explore the books, free resources, and more kingdom adventures. And then tell me which whisper found you, because I love to hear from you. Every story is another doorway. Every doorway leads a little closer to the only King.
If this chronicle has found its way into your hands, I hope you will receive it as it was given to me, with patience, wonder, and an open heart. There are those who spend their lives searching for the extraordinary, believing the King only reveals himself in grand miracles, mighty victories, or moments that alter the course of kingdoms. Yet I have discovered that his ways are often quieter than we expect, more enduring, more easily overlooked. The stories gathered within these pages are not just tales of perfect people, nor are they legends meant only to entertain. They are accounts of ordinary lives, interrupted by the gentle invitation of the King. Some answered quickly, others wrestled with doubt. A few nearly walked away before they recognized the voice that had been calling them all along. Whether every detail unfolded precisely as it is written matters far less than the truth each story faithfully preserves. For the King has always delighted in revealing himself through the humble, the unnoticed, and the willing heart. As you read, I ask only one thing of you: do not hurry. Some stories are meant to be admired from a distance. These are meant to be walked through one careful step at a time. Perhaps somewhere between these pages you may recognize a whisper you have heard before, or perhaps you will hear it for the very first time.
From the Journal of the Chronicler. There are stories that kingdoms remember. They are carved into monuments, sung by minstrels, and passed from one generation to the next until no one recalls where they began. Then there are quieter stories, stories that leave no monument behind. A shepherd who lingered when others hurried home. A widow who chose mercy when bitterness would have been easier. A child who believed the King still kept his promises. These stories rarely survive the passing of time, not because they are unimportant, but because the world has always been more fascinated by crowns than by faithfulness. I have spent many years gathering these forgotten accounts wherever they could be found, in weathered journals, beside evening fires, from travelers whose names have long since been lost, and from those who carried the king's work quietly enough that few ever noticed it at all. Whether you believe these chronicles to be history, memory, or something altogether different is a matter I gladly leave to you. I only know this. The king is still writing stories, and every now and then one begins with a whisper. Signed, the chronicler. It started with a whisper. No one alive could agree on when it had begun. Some insisted the darkness arrived with the fall of the last kingdom. Others believed it had crept into the world much earlier, settling quietly into the hearts of men long before swords were drawn or crowns exchanged hands. The oldest storytellers spoke of forgotten covenants and abandoned altars, while scholars devoted entire libraries to theories no one could prove. Everyone had an explanation, yet no one truly knew where the story had started. If you had asked the keeper of the valley, however, he would have given you an entirely different answer. He was an old man whose beard had turned the color of winter ash and whose eyes carried the peculiar brightness of someone who had spent a lifetime listening more than speaking. Most dismissed him as nothing more than a harmless storyteller. But every now and then, travelers would linger by his porch just long enough to hear one of his tales before continuing on their journey. Whenever anyone asked how the kingdoms had fallen into such unrest, he would smile towards the eastern hills and answer with the same quiet certainty. It started with a whisper. The answer almost always earned a puzzled laugh. Whispers were too small to matter. They vanished almost as they were spoken. Kingdoms were shaped by armies, powerful rulers, impossible victories, and devastating defeats, not by voices gentle enough to disappear into the wind. At least, that's what most people believed. The valley where Justina had spent her entire life seemed untouched by the troubles whispered about in distant lands. Narrow stone paths wound between modest cottages whose gardens overflowed with lavender and climbing roses. Children chased one another through fields that rolled like green waves beneath the morning sun, while merchants arranged baskets of bread and fresh fruit as though tomorrow promised nothing more than another ordinary day. Yet Justina had long ago noticed there was nothing ordinary about the valley. Every evening, just before the sun disappeared, behind the western ridge, an unusual stillness settled over the countryside. It wasn't the quiet that naturally followed the end of a busy day. It felt different somehow, as though the land itself had paused to listen. The breeze would fade until even the tallest grasses stood motionless. Birds tucked themselves into the trees without a sound, and the river that bordered the village seemed to soften its endless song until it became little more than a murmur against the rocks. She had asked her grandmother about it countless times as a child. Her grandmother would simply smile, brush a loose strand of hair behind Justina's ear, and say, "Creation knows its king better than we do. Sometimes the world remembers to listen even when people forget." As she grew older, Justina assumed these words belonged to the beautiful imagination of an aging woman whose faith colored everything she saw. Life had a way of replacing childhood wonder with responsibilities that left little room for mystery. And eventually she stopped asking questions she knew no one else seemed interested in answering. Even so, every evening when the silence settled over the valley, she found herself stopping whatever she was doing for the briefest moment. She couldn't explain why. It was simply impossible to ignore the feeling that someone unseen, had stepped quietly into the world around her. That same feeling followed her to the river one cool spring morning. The village was still asleep when she left her cottage, carrying 2 empty buckets balanced across a wooden yoke. A blanket of mist drifted over the water, catching the first hints of sunrise until the river shimmered with soft shades of gold and silver. The only sounds were the rhythmic splash of the current against smooth stones and the distant call of a mourning dove somewhere beyond the trees. Justina knelt along the bank and lowered one of the buckets beneath the surface. The cold water wrapped around her hands as she steadied it against the current, and for a moment she simply watched the ripples widen across the glass-like reflection of the morning sky. She had just begun to lift the bucket when she became aware that she was no longer alone. The sensation came first, not fear, not surprise, only the unmistakable awareness that someone was standing close enough to speak. She turned slowly. The narrow path behind her remained empty. The trees swayed gently in the morning breeze, and a pair of rabbits disappeared into the tall grass as if nothing unusual had disturbed the quiet. Justina waited another moment before letting out a small breath and smiling at herself. Her grandmother would have teased her for imagining things. She adjusted the yoke across her shoulders, reached for the second bucket, and knelt once again beside the river. That was when she heard it. Justina. The voice was so gentle she almost mistook it for the breeze moving through the weeds, yet it carried a warmth unlike anything she had ever known. It did not echo through the valley or shake the earth beneath her feet. Instead, it seemed to settle into the deepest part of her heart, as though it had always belonged there and had merely been waiting for the right moment to awaken. Her hands became perfectly still beneath the water. She listened. The river continued its quiet song. The wind stirred the branches overhead. Then, with the same patient gentleness, the voice came again. Come. Justina remained where she was, unable to move, not because she was afraid, but because every certainty she had carried only moments before suddenly seemed too small to explain what had just happened. Somewhere beyond the familiar valley, beyond the mountains that framed the horizon, and the life she had always known, someone was calling her by name. She could not yet understand why, but deep within her spirit, she sensed that answering this invitation would change far more than the course of her own life. It would become the beginning of a story that heaven had been writing long before she was born. From the Journal of the Chronicler. Every whisper leaves an echo. Every step of obedience opens another path. Justina's journey had only just begun, and the king was far from finished writing her story. The pages close for now, but stories worthy of remembering rarely end where we expect. Somewhere beyond the eastern hills, another whisper is already being carried on the wind. Perhaps we shall follow it together. Until the next chronicle, may your heart remain attentive to the whisper. Signed, The Chronicler. The Whisper Chronicles, Volume 2, coming soon. The Lantern Keeper. Somewhere beyond the eastern hills, a single lantern still burns. A promise waits to be kept. A journey calls for a willing heart. The next whisper is already on its way. Thank you for journeying with me through the Whisper Chronicles. These are stories of wonder, truths that endure, whispers that lead us back to the King. I'm Nicole Charles, storyteller, dreamer, and a lover of all things that point us to Jesus. Everything we've just read or listened to is a piece of a much greater world God has placed on my heart, the fortress world, They're different stories, different journeys, but one unwavering king. You can explore more voices from the Fortress. Voices from the Fortress, the series, the Christian fantasy series, book 1, The Lion's Whisper. It's out, available on Amazon. You have the Royal Identity series, which is for young hearts learning who they always were meant to be. There's 3 books written. The first one is Crowned, the second one is Brave, and the third one is Chosen. Then we have Prepare Like a Bride. It's the devotional series. It's a devotional for the waiting, the hoping, and the becoming. They have micro stories in the front, little mini stories, and then devotionals in the back. They have 22 chapters and 2 original songs that go with it. And then, super excited, Victorious, Beloved Daughter of the King is coming soon. It's a hope-filled fiction for the everyday warrior. And of course, many, 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 many more to come. There are new whispers, new worlds, always pointing to Him. So if these stories encourage you, I would love for you to follow me all on social media, Facebook, Nicole Charles. My link tree is there. Share this with someone who needs to hear the whisper today, or save it so this journey won't leave you missing out. And connect with me. I would love to hear from you because your story matters. So let's walk this kingdom road together. And I cannot wait to see what He reveals next. So until the next Chronicle, keep listening.